You're watching Kruger Nation Horror Movie Reviews. Today I am talking Sleepaway Camp. Let's do it, bitches.
Sleepaway Camp, 1983.
The movie starts off with a boating accident involving two little kids and their dad. Then we fast forward to 8 years later, and we're going to Camp Arawak. It's Angela and her cousin Ricky, and we also are introduced in this scene to Ricky's mom, the crazy aunt. And I really like this character and her over-the-top acting, but it was kind of like she was on Quaaludes and meth all at the same time. I mean, she was like a walking anti-drug ad. Okay, so we get to camp, and you're immediately introduced to a couple cooks talking. One of them's making lewd comments about the kids, and the other one's saying, oh, they're too young to know what you're talking about. And so that cook says, there's no such thing as too young. And so the other guy's like, oh, you... really? He's gonna rape all the kids! And so the main plot of this is Angela doesn't fit in at summer camp. She's quiet and shy, and she's getting picked on by all the girls, all the kids. They're being mean to her, and her overprotective cousin Ricky, who's got the most awesome foul mouth of a little kid I've ever heard. He's, you know, defending her and telling everybody he's gonna slit their throats and stuff. And so people end up dying one by one. It's kind of a slasher mystery because you really don't know who it is. So throughout the movie, all these deaths keep happening. And the owner of this camp, he's like batshit crazy. I mean, he doesn't care what happens. He wants to keep it on the down low. He wants to keep the camp open, and he's just certain that they're gonna like shut him down, which they probably should since there's like 16 murders. But you know, anytime someone says something, he's like, no, there's nothing to it, nothing. It's crazy. The fashion in this movie is absolutely horrendous. You got a bunch of guys in Daisy Dukes, half shirts, featherback hair. You can tell it's the early 80s. This movie does have some cool kills in it, though. You get a guy being boiled in a giant pot, you have a drowning, you have a girl getting stabbed in the shower, a guy dying by a bee's nest, you have an arrow, and probably the most memorable death in this whole movie is a girl that gets suffocated, but while she's being suffocated, she's getting a curling iron in her coochie. Ew. There are a lot of disturbing things about this movie, like the girl Meg that gets stabbed in the shower. She's showering to get ready for her date with a geriatric camp owner. I'm thinking like, bang? Ew, gross. Another thing I noticed is on the wall in the girl's bunk, there's a poster, and I couldn't make out who it was, but I'm pretty sure it was either Richard Simmons or Art Garfunkel. Were they like sex symbols in the 80s? Okay, so as people are dying, the camp owner suspects that it's Ricky, and he sets out to kill Ricky because he's gonna stop all the murders at his camp. But it turns out, as the plot unfolds and everything is going down, they find, at the very end of the movie, Angela on the beach. And she turns around, and she's covered in blood, and... penis! That's right. Angela's really a boy whose aunt dressed as a girl because, I guess, his sister died in the boating accident with the dad, and the aunt took care of her, and the aunt always wanted a girl. So that's where Angela came from. And it's pretty messed up. I mean, for 1983, I don't think a lot of people expected that. And this movie is pretty effed up, but man, you watch it the second time and watch what's going on, and it's really fucked up, man. Imagine what Angela's going through. Oh. So this movie basically plays out like an after-school special with a killer. That's what it felt like to me. The one complaint I have about this whole movie, which is pretty good to have just one complaint, the accents, man. The thick Jersey accents in this. Horrible. I mean, I guess I can't hold that against them because that's just a regional thing, but other than that...
I recommend Sleepaway Camp 2, Unhappy Campers, 1988.
This movie starts off at Camp Rolling Hills with a Patrick Swayze wannabe guy telling a campfire story to, you know, pretty much recap the first film. And immediately, a girl comes over to the campfire and tells another girl that it's time to go back to your bunk. And the girl kind of, you know, backtalks her and stuff. Well, they get into the woods, and the girl who told her she had to get back ends up killing her. And it turns out, that's Angela from the first movie. And this movie is a lot different from the first film because this is not a mystery, it's a straight up slasher film, and it seems a lot more free and fun. I mean, the whole movie is just a bunch of crazy kills and just lots of fun. Lots of cool one-liners Angela had. She's actually played by a different actress in this. Instead of Felissa Rose, she's played by Pamela Springsteen, who is the sister of Bruce Springsteen, the boss. The main girl in this is like that wholesome girl next door. Her name is Molly, and she's played by Renee Estevez, who's very cute. And she's also the sister of Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez. The main guy in this, Sean, the best way to describe him is he's like a pre-Josh Hartnett. And I guess because the Brat Pack was really big back in the 80s, a lot of the characters had Brat Pack names. There was Charlie, Emilio, Judd, Allie, Rob, Demi, Brooke. I think there were a lot more, but that's all I can remember off the top of my head right now. The deaths in this were kind of like moral lessons. The girl who talked too much gets her tongue cut out. The shit sisters who spend their time getting stoned, they get smoked out on a grill pretty much. There's a girl who gets shoved into an outhouse, and it's a gross death, man, for living a shitty life and pissing her dreams away, or something like that. It was something like that. But that's pretty much it for this one. And this one did not have those Jersey accents, so
I recommend Sleepaway Camp 3 Teenage Wasteland 1988.
This one starts off at Camp New Horizons, owned by Herman and Lily, and it's basically a camp where they get inner city youth and overprivileged kids together so they can work together in nature and learn how life's gonna be. I don't know. It's basically Herman and Lily exploiting kids and getting money and, you know, making them go fishing while they eat steak and stuff. It's just a couple of really crappy people. Herman is actually played by Michael J. Pollard, who is an excellent character actor. Most people know him from Scrooged with Bill Murray. He plays the homeless guy who freezes to death under the city street. This movie was directed the same year as Part 2 by the same director, but it has a cheaper feel to it. I don't know if it was a smaller budget, but it just seems grittier. A lot of the deaths seem cheaper, and even Angela's motivations seem a little bit different than Part 2. Like Part 2, she went to camp so she could be back in that environment and just punish the kids who were doing bad things. But in this one, it's like she starts the movie off killing an inner city girl and taking her spot at camp just so she can kill people. So it's a little bit different. There was no big, like camping area, no, bunks and things like that. It was all, just camping with tents in the woods. There were less characters. Definitely cheaper feeling. Of all the sleepaway camp movies, I will say this. This is hands down the most racist one. I mean, there's an Asian girl named Arab. There's a black guy who the whole movie is walking around with a boombox, and he's not even listening to like a rap song. It's just some cheap-ass Casio keyboard beat. It's so bad. And there's actually a really bad scene, where Angela's rapping outside. She gives him a tape before she kills him and starts rapping. Oh, it's so bad. Another thing I didn't like about this movie is toward the end, there's a 4-minute flashback sequence to things that happened in Part 2. It was unnecessary, really, because it's not even like it's establishing anything more than Angela loved to be at camp, and I guess she kind of misses Molly from Part 2. I don't know. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Maybe it was to get people caught up, in case they couldn't figure out who she was or why she was there. Some of the deaths in this one, news anchor snorts some comic cleaning stuff. A guy gets stabbed in the mouth with a tree branch. 2 people get beaten with a tree branch. That's not really that original. A guy gets his head blown up with a firecracker. A girl strung up on a flagpole and dropped to the ground. Lawnmower chopping off someone's head. There were a lot more, but that's pretty much it.
Recommend. Return to Sleepaway Camp 2008.
20 years after Part 3, this movie is written and directed by the original writer and director of the first film, and is said to be the official sequel, while it's a little bit lower in the quality. One thing I didn't like about this film immediately was they brought back the goddamn Jersey accents. Why? This movie takes place at Camp Manabi, and you're immediately introduced to the main character of the film, Alan, who I guess he's supposed to be like the Angela character from part 1, but he is obnoxious. I just can't get on board with this guy. He is just scum of the earth, just a piece of shit. I mean, you can't feel sympathetic for this guy because he's such a bad person. The chef calls him the camp problem child, which automatically establishes that he's a little prick. And then, in the first 10 minutes of the movie, he pulls 2 knives on 2 people. I mean, this isn't like a sympathetic character. This is a piece of shit. I will say this movie does feel more like part 1 than 2 and 3 did. The acting, they brought back the guy who played Ricky from part 1 and the guy who played Ronnie. I'm going to say right now that they have gotten worse as actors. I mean, a million times worse. But I didn't mind them being in this. It was kind of cool to see familiar faces from the first film. They tried to distance themselves from parts 2 and 3 in this one, but there were some obvious, I don't know if you want to say callbacks or rip-offs, but there's a character named TC in this, which is the Patrick Swayze guy's character from part 2. There's a scene in this movie where a guy gets tied to a tree and his junk gets ripped off by a moving Jeep. That's kind of similar to the scene in part 3 where the guy who's into the bondage gets tied against the tree and the Jeep drives off. I don't know, it seems pretty coincidental. Something I did like about this movie, it has CKY in it, one of my favorite bands. They were only in it for about a minute, but they played camp counselors. I thought it was kind of cool. Some of the deaths in this one, guy gets burned alive in a deep fryer, which is kind of like the death in the boiling pot in part 1. Guy gets put into a dick noose? I guess that's what you call it. He gets his junk ripped off. There's a guy gets burned alive. One complaint I have about this movie, and I guess I shouldn't because it's a cheesy slasher film. Okay, the whole movie there's a cop who's just this, he looks like a troll, man. He's got one of those talk things in it, you know, that, hi there, my name is Sheriff, bitch face. He's got that going on, and it's pretty obvious what's going on from the beginning of this movie. That is obviously a woman dressed as a man, and in the very end of the movie, you find out that that's Angela, and if you wait past the credits of the movie, it shows a girl on the side of the road with a flat tire, and a cop pulls over to help her, and she ends up dropping the car on his head. And that's actually a really cool kill also. But that girl's Angela, and that's when she becomes the sheriff. But my biggest complaint is, it's a slasher film, I know, but how is she this, like, prosthetic face, you know, whiz all of a sudden? Hasn't she been in a mental institution? But, I mean, but that being said, it wasn't very convincing, so, you know, maybe the stupidity lies in the people who actually bought it, the characters who believed it. But that's pretty much it. That's the twist of the movie. It's, like I said, it's not a great movie, but it's not as bad as everybody makes it out to be. So, that's it.
Recommend.
That's pretty much it. So, if you have any comments, put them in the comment section below. Subscribe, like if you'd like. And till next time, Kruger Nation, peace.